Grant Harrold, known as the Royal Butler, is a former butler to King Charles III turned etiquette expert and broadcaster, who's offering insights into the unspoken rules of coughing in public places as part of research on cough etiquette this winter. And the Royal Butler is on the line with us. How are you today?
Luckily, I'm very well. How are you? I hope you haven't got a cough.
Oh, no, I'm very well as well, so far. So, can you tell us a bit about the importance of proper coughing etiquette, especially during this season when colds are so prevalent?
Well, basically, Toby, over the summer, I actually had a cough for a few months. So I'm fully aware of how awkward, embarrassing this can all be. And Comvita actually got in touch because they were doing some research into coughing etiquette, and they did some fascinating a poll with 2,000 people, and it shocked me because obviously having a cough over the summer. It did shock me because it said that a fifth of people in the UK, 19%, frequently hold in a cough of the fear of being judged. Now, I'm obviously one of those 90%, and I thought that was a small number, personally. I thought
Yeah.
it'd be a lot higher. It went on to say that they revealed that in restaurants, 16% of people said it was the worst place to have a coughing fit, offices, 14%, public transport, 14%. These numbers just seemed, I don't know, they seemed small. But then it went on to say that 25% admit to cough in their hands, which is obviously quite a high number. 17% think it's acceptable to cough in the part. So the numbers were just, I thought, overall were quite low, considering
Mm.
what we've just been through and everything that's just happened. And I say because I've had a really bad cough over the summer, I'm aware that it's embarrassing, it's awkward, and hence why we came up with some etiquette tips about which I hadn't ever heard about coughing etiquette tips, but we come up with some coughing etiquette tips to hopefully help people going forward.
So, what are some of those tips?
There's a few. I mean, the first I've got here is always cough into a tissue or a handkerchief, definitely into your hand. People say we don't have handkerchiefs. I get that. But, we've all got tissues. We've all got kitchen roll in our kitchens, or most of us have. So it's just using something like that rather than just coughing or sneezing just into someone's direction. As a backup, I don't recommend it. You don't normally see royals doing it. But if you've got a sleeve, if you're going to cough, especially if it's a cough, you can always cough in your sleeve. But it's not something I recommend. It's only as a backup. But the important part is don't do it in someone else's direction, because as I put here, sharing is caring, but definitely not in this situation. I've got, if you develop a cough, try to conceal it as best you can, and failing that, apologise to those near you, and ensure that you do cough away from their direction. And the next one is based on what I said about the percentage, 25% coughing into the hands. So we've gone on to do not shake hands with anyone or touch any surfaces until you've washed your hands thoroughly, which I think is really important. And the next one, which is one that I personally followed it as well, if you need to go out, make sure you've got a cough. Take plenty of handkerchiefs. Bottle of water is essential. And again, I've put here, take some cough drops or something with you to kind of help. Now, from my point of view, Comvita have got lozenges that I have been traveling with. I use those. They definitely help. So having something with you that you can take, that's easy to take, alongside with your water, along with your handkerchiefs, these help. So I think, again, it's common sense, really, practical common sense.
You mentioned, of course, about royals there, and you're, of course, a former butler to the now king. So, how does royal etiquette differ when it comes to situations like coughing in public?
Well, when they cough, which they do something in public, but they're quite good about it. And you'll notice, obviously, they kind of bring the hand up to the face and kind of do it away from people. And if they've got a really bad cough or a cold, we don't see them. The reality is they step back from public duties until they're better, which I know is not always possible for all of us in working life. But
Yeah.
if we can, and we've got a cold or a cough, it's the best thing to do is to avoid it. The king, as we know, is somebody that believes in alternative medicines as well as traditional medication, and he'll turn to. Well, I'll give you an example. In their household, I remember when I had a cough, I was introduced to, well, I'd been introduced to it, but I was given Manuka honey, hot water, lemon, and some whiskey, actually.
Wow.
Some whiskey in that. So what is that, a hot toddy? I was introduced to that, and then I discovered that the king obviously likes his honey, which has been discussed publicly, and of course Manuka honey is among those. And what was interesting is Comvita actually have honey in the products, the Manuka honey in the products, which is why I think it's so good, and it's really good for you. So I'm kind of saying to people this winter that if you think you're gonna get bugs, then go and get some of their products. And while on the website, have a little look at the research that's been done, and you can also get my top tips, and that's on comvita.co.uk winter essentials.
And how can we strike a balance between relieving the symptoms and being comfortable and still maintaining proper etiquette?
Really difficult, when you've got someone else. It is difficult. It's not the easiest thing to kind of manage. It is difficult, but you've got to kind of do it in a way that that makes it the people around you are not too worried, because what you don't want to do is cause panic or make people feel uncomfortable when they're around you. I think that's the important thing, if you can help it.
Do you have any more interesting anecdotes or experiences from your time as a butler that are related to etiquette and coughing in particular?
I think with the royals, whenever they had coughs or anything, they would obviously kind of like do everything to kind of avoid passing those on. They were quite strict about them. And you saw when during COVID, obviously the king stopped doing handshakes and did the namaste with his hands together. So they're very careful when it comes to things like this, and also the late queen used to always wear gloves, didn't she?
Yeah.
Because she shook so many hands, she would wear gloves to kind of protect her hands. So they do things that are practical but are common sense as well. And I think that's what we should all be kind of doing. We can all copy and take a leaf out of their book.
You mentioned earlier the researchers found that, I guess it's maybe lower than expected, about some people who hold in a cough because they feel embarrassed about it. So what advice do you have for them? Because if you think about it, it's nothing really to be embarrassed about.
There's not, and I've been there, so I know exactly what that's like when you have got a cough and you're trying to hold it in. I know exactly what that's like, and it's horrendous. It's really awkward, especially in a restaurant. I've been in restaurants, I've been on cruise ships and restaurants and public transport, planes, flights, trains, cars, and it's really awkward. I always do the tests, COVID tests, to assure people that obviously it's not COVID. But even then, people are still concerned, quite rightly, which is why, again, I'm surprised that these numbers are so low, because I think people are still concerned and worried about it, and people do not want to repeat what happened 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So it is, as I'm saying, it's just using common sense and trying to, if you do get a cough, it's trying to do things to help get it better, as I say, quickly. Mine took ages, but trying to get it to go away as quickly as possible if you can.
And are there still some situations where it's maybe best to avoid coughing in public, because sometimes it's not embarrassment about other people worrying they'll catch something from you. Sometimes you might be at a funeral or somewhere where if you let out a massive sneeze, it would maybe be inappropriate.
Yeah, it draws attention, doesn't it? If you feel that you're going to have a problem like that, just stay home. If you think it's manageable, then just judge it. If you're in a church or something, you're going to have a coughing fit, you're going to have to remove yourself from the church or from the service. If you're in a meeting or something, and again, you're going to have a sneezing fit or a coughing fit, remove yourself. These are the things. I think if people see you, the other thing to mention is that when people see you taking medication, whether it be lozenges, whether it be pills, whatever it might be, they know that you've got a bug. They'll have an idea you've got a flu or something.
Yeah.
And that's not it's not a bad thing, but at the same time, just make sure that you've been very careful prior to that they've seen that you haven't maybe shaken hands, that you've been kind of keeping out the way and that kind of thing, because you just want people to know that you're being sensible about it.
Yeah. Well, where are we able to go to find out more information?
Well, as I said, if you head to so obviously Comvita have actually done the research, and if you go to the website comvita.co.uk winter essentials, there you will find the information on the research, which is I think really interesting. I think your listeners will find it interesting to have a look look at that. You can get my tips there as well. And the other thing that you find there, which I thought was quite interesting, is the information about the Manuka honey that they use, because obviously it's from New Zealand. It's got many health benefits that people might not realise. And there you can get a lot of information about it. And you'll also find the winter wellness helpers, which is what I'm stocking up on this winter to hopefully avoid another cough.
Yes.
Fingers crossed.
Hopefully, we'll see about that. But many thanks for joining us. It's been great having you here.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it, Toby. And nice to speak to a fellow Scot.